Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. You are watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos receives more cables of greetings on the occasion of his blessed return. Governorates and wilayas of the Sultanate continue their celebrations rejoicing His Majesty's safe return. And with global participation, the first World Conference on Operation Preparedness and Transport to new airports in the Sultanate starts. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. On the auspicious occasion of the return of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the homeland safe and healthy, His Majesty received cables of greetings from His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, His Excellency President Mahmoud Abbas of the State of Palestine, Chairman of Executive Committee of Palestine Liberation Organization, His Excellency President Dr. Ikilil Tanin of Comoros, His Excellency President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud of Somalia, His Excellency President Dr. Hassan Rouhani of Iran, and from Honorable Dr. Ahmed Al-Tayyib Sheikh of Al-Azhar.
أيها المواطنون الأعزاء، إن بناء الدولة العصرية التي تعهدنا بإقامتها منذ اللحظة الأولى لفجر النهضة المباركة قد اقتضى منا بذل جهود كبيرة في مجال إنشاء البنية الأساسية التي هي عماد التنمية الشاملة وركيزتها الأولى، وتوفير هذه البنية في شتى ربوع السلطنة أتاح ولله الحمد فرصة كبرى للتطور العمراني في مختلف المدن والقرى على امتداد الساحة العمانية.
In a wide participation from all walks of life, citizens in the Wilaya of Sahar ventured out in a left for the leader procession, rejoicing the return of His Majesty to the homeland. Since the early hours of the morning, citizens from schools, university establishments and domestic institutions, along with sheikhs and other dignitaries, as well as expatriates, participated in the procession that reflected their profound love and loyalty to the builder of modern Oman Renaissance. Countless people gathered on Sohar seaside and chanting, "The country of peace, feel good the leader has returned." An overwhelming readiness and response came fast to express their profound allegiance and loyalty. Men, women, young and old, all marched hoisting pictures of His Majesty and flags of the Sultanate. They chanted their love and prayed thanks to Almighty Allah that His Majesty Sultan Qaboos returned with good health. They ended the procession at Sohar Historical Fort. Citizens in the Wilaya of Sib also organized loyalty and gratitude procession on the return of His Majesty to the homeland. It started from Maqamat roundabout in Ma'bela to arrive to roundabout of Beit al-Barqa. Citizens and expatriates chanted expressions of gratitude and thanked the Almighty Allah for preserving His Majesty, the builder of the Omani Renaissance. Citizens from all walks of life, young and old, males and females, all took part in the procession. They expressed their joy and happiness on the return of His Majesty, renewing allegiance and loyalty. Traditional groups also took part, chanting national songs and poetry. They hoisted flags and His Majesty's pictures, forming a national solidarity in the love of the leader. The 23rd of March is considered by the participants as a great and happy day. The leader has returned, and thanks to Almighty Allah for that. The return of the Sultan embodied once again the scene of the 70s with its full embodiment, with the feelings of joy and happiness mixed with affection for the leader, the father and the builder, His Majesty Sultan Qaboos. Further details in this report, read by Ms. Sabra Abu Khalid.
The leader has returned, and thanks to Almighty Allah for that. The soul of Oman has come back as the return of its Sultan fulfilled desire of his people for his return and to see him after being abroad, away from the homeland, Oman, the country which was present with him in his stay and travel, as it is the same condition with his people for the leader who is present in their mind and soul. The return of the Sultan embodied once again the scene of the 70s, with its full embodiment where the feelings of joy and happiness mixed with affection for the leader, the father and the builder, His Majesty Sultan Qaboos. The Sultan dispensed decades of his life and health in construction of Oman and gathering its people's determination to transform the Sultanate to the rank of modern states. Each part of Oman narrates an epic story between the leader and people who spent their life for construction of the country. Stories took events throughout decades of construction, development and achievements with decisiveness. They started from the 0 point taken off from far-sighted vision of His Majesty by utilizing revenues of natural resources. His Majesty's goal was and still for his people to live in prosperity, security and stability, and for Oman to return to its glory and status in human civilization, to find itself today a modern state as it was visualized by the leader. It was based on gathering potentials of the country which comprised people and resources, besides strengthening bonds of national unity and to achieve deep feeling of security and safety. Growth witnessed by the Sultanate in various fields proved success of wise policy of His Majesty, who worked to reformulate the life all over Oman, strengthened by bridges of love and extended a hand of friendship to brotherly and friendly countries of the world, in order to achieve joint and reciprocated interests within the context of mutual respect and good neighborliness, besides resolving differences by peaceful means and abiding by international laws and its known norms. In spite of that witnessed by the Gulf and Arab region of challenges, the Sultanate was always in the venue of parties, meetings and the trust of them, all at different circumstances. It is no wonder that the Sultanate's relations grew and expanded with countries of the world and gained appreciations from numerous regional and international organizations. This great leader devoted himself and dedicated his efforts with precision and sincerity to serve his country, people, Arab and Islamic nations, and humanity at large. He also instilled his biography in the history as a model of wise and inspired leadership that combined and united hearts of people around him, as well as they reciprocated love, loyalty, and allegiance towards him. This wise leader loved his people, and his people loved him, and became the King of Hearts who captured sentiments with fatherly feelings and abundant humane stances. Words will stop short, and the language is not capable of encompassing the true meaning of the wisdom of His Majesty the Sultan.
Coinciding with the safe return of His Majesty the Sultan to the country, citizens in the Vilayah of Wadi al-Mawil in the Governorate of South Bulletin expressed their joy on this occasion, singing songs of happiness and carrying portraits of His Majesty and Omani flags while praying to Almighty Allah to protect His Majesty and endow him with good health, happiness and long life. In the Vilayah of Al-Jazar in the Governorate of Worcester, the citizens organized a loyalty and gratitude procession rejoicing the return of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the country. Huge crowds of citizens participated in the procession, carrying pictures of His Majesty and hoisting flags of the Sultanate. It was also accompanied by Omani traditional arts. Citizens of the Vilayah of Ibra organized a procession of allegiance and gratitude and took to the streets with the Sultanate's flag hoisting and pictures of His Majesty the Sultan as traditional bands performed singing arts and a prayer to Almighty to protect His Majesty and endow him with good health. It was also accompanied by Omani traditional singing arts and horse shows.
إن سياستنا الداخلية كما عهدتموها دائما قائمة على العمل البناء لما فيه الصالح العام، مواكبين تطورات العصر مع المحافظة على هويتنا وثوابتنا وقيمنا التي نعتز بها. أما سياستنا الخارجية فأساسها الدعوة إلى السلام والوئام والتعاون الوثيق بين سائر الأمم والالتزام بمبادئ الحق والعدل والإنصاف وعدم التدخل في الشؤون الداخلية للغير وفض المنازعات بالطرق السلمية وبما يحفظ للبشرية جمعاء أمنها واستقرارها ورخاءها وازدهارها.
Citizens in the Vilayah of Mudaybi also organized loyalty and gratitude procession on the return of His Majesty to the homeland. During the procession, the citizens chanted expressions of gratitude and thanked the Almighty Allah for preserving His Majesty, the builder of the Omani Renaissance. It was also accompanied by poetry, Omani traditional singing arts, camel and horse shows, in addition to a long flag of the Sultanate with a length of 9 meters was hoisted to express best wishes for His Majesty the Sultan to return safely to Oman. Coinciding with the safe return of His Majesty the Sultan to the country, citizens in the Vilayah of Liva expressed their joy on this occasion, singing songs of happiness and carrying portraits of His Majesty and the Omani flags while praying to Almighty Allah to protect His Majesty and endow him with good health, happiness and long life. During the procession, the traditional bands performed, singing arts and national poems, expressed joy and happiness on the return of His Majesty, renewing allegiance and loyalty. In the Governorate of South Bulletin, the citizens of the Vilayah of Barka expressed their joy on the safe return of His Majesty the Sultan to the dear country by organizing a procession of allegiance and gratitude. Huge crowds of citizens participated in the procession, carrying pictures of His Majesty and hoisting flags of the Sultanate, cheering sincere greetings and best wishes to His Majesty, the beloved leader, praying to Almighty to protect His Majesty as the guardian of this country and its people.
We are a generation that we consider ourselves blessed, living in Oman right now in 2015. When you compare the lifestyle in the past, not only for us but for our parents, in terms of education, we are in everywhere. In terms of working field, women are everywhere. We have the leadership and the power. When we say power, I'm talking about equal between women and men. Lifestyle has changed a lot. Things have become easier. Women, you can see them in every aspect of life and field in Oman.
The visionary plans and the hard work put by His Majesty for developing this country is well realized by the people of Oman and those non-Omanis who live in this country. As Omanis, we are provided with lots of opportunities to have a better life. Thank you, Your Majesty.
His Majesty Sultan Qaboos received a cable of thanks from His Excellency President Pranab Mukherjee of India in reply to His Majesty's cable of greetings on the occasion of his country's 66th National Day. And His Majesty the Sultan sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Mohammed Abdul Hamid of Bangladesh on his country's independence anniversary. Local Gulf and Arab newspapers allocated special pages on the Sultanate celebration, rejoicing the return of His Majesty the Sultan to the dear country. Writers of the published articles highlighted the role of His Majesty the Sultan in achieving international peace and his attention to his citizens and building a modern state. The pages varied between article, reports and analytical study, in which writers showcased the importance of this event and its impact in the feelings of the citizens and residents, and even the followers, touching upon the wisdom and policy of His Majesty and his efforts in achieving permanent progress. Moreover, Egyptian newspapers and other websites also paid attention to this event. The official Middle East news agency published a report on the regional and international indications of His Majesty's return, focusing on Oman's diplomacy towards Arab international issues. Egyptian websites touched upon this issue in an expansive way, mentioning that huge celebration will continue to many weeks. A number of global indices in various fields showed an increase in the Sultanate's ranking Arab and global wise. The Sultanate achieved the 56th place among 187 countries in the General Index of Human Development, which was a result of the royal care of His Majesty the Sultan in building the Omani citizen. The World Bank's Index for Logistic Performance put the Sultanate in 59th place globally, including electronic international standards and telecommunication infrastructure. The Human Capital Index ranked e-government development of the Sultanate 47th globally. The biodiversity, agriculture and fisheries were factors that led the Sultanate in the Environmental Performance Index in the 99th globally. The local follow-up of sectors showed an increase in the achieved figures, as the Sultanate recorded a positive rise in oil and non-oil activities, achieving a progress in the gross domestic product, with an increase exceeded 5% to reach more than 23 billion Omani riyals. The contribution of industrial sector has doubled with 18.3%, which embodied the Sultanate's investment in the industrial activities. The Sultanate's electricity and water production also continued to rise, achieving more than 28,000 gigawatt of electricity and more than 3 million cubic meters of water. Success of actual operation and moving to the new airports was the focus of the first Global Conference for Operation Preparedness, which started its work in Muscat. The opening was presided over by His Excellency Dr. Ahmed bin Mohammed Al-Fataisi, Minister of Transport and Communications, and aimed to activate channels of contact among experts and specialists who came from various countries to exchange their experiences towards airports operations readiness. Executive President of the Public Authority for Civil Defense stressed the importance of convening such conferences in Muscat at a time the Sultanate is determined to establish and activate 5 international and domestic airports. Important steps have taken already in preparing the 9th 5-year plan document 2016-2020 and its proposed financial framework prior to be forwarded to the Council of Ministers top discussions of the first meeting of the year of the Supreme Council for Planning, presided over by His Excellency Dr. Ali bin Masood Al-Sunaidi, Minister of Commerce and Industry and Vice Chairman of the Supreme Council for Planning. The document included priorities, principles, economic and financial frameworks and standards of allocating funds of growth programs for continuing and new projects. The Council also discussed results of studies of soft real estate and housing development from the points of legal and technical aspects to create complete residential district sites plans in various governorates of the Sultanate. It also viewed a number of economic and social policies, as well as labour market, food security and ways of dealing with youth issues during the 9th 5-year development plan, as well as alternatives in case of oil prices fluctuations. In the Vilayah of Khasab in the Governorate of Musandam, work contracts for small and medium enterprises were signed by huge companies at a cost of 17 million Omani riyals. The signing took place during the Employment Opportunities Forum, the activities of which were opened by His Excellency Sheikh Khalid bin Umar Al Marhoon, Minister of Civil Service. The activities of the annual competition for light weapon shooting for 2015 ended today at Ghala Shooting Ground. The competition is organized annually by the International Shooting Unit, affiliated to Military Sports Directorate at Sultan's Armed Forces Chief of Staff Command. The conclusion ceremony was held under the auspices of His Excellency Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser Al Bakri, Minister of Manpower. The contest witnessed great competition among participants who represented Armed Forces Chief of Staff Command, Royal Army of Oman, Royal Air Force of Oman, Royal Guard of Oman, Engineering Services of the Ministry of Defense, Royal Oman Police and Royal Court Affairs. The competition aimed to upgrade the capability of using light weapons amongst officers, non-commissioned officers and personnel and select shooters qualified to join national shooting teams. Now for the general weather forecast. Clear to partly cloudy skies will prevail over the Sultanate, with the chances of scattered rain over Hajar Mountains and nearby areas. Winds will be north to northeasterly light to moderate. Seas will be moderate along the western coast of the Governorate of Musandam, with a maximum wave height of 2 meters, and it will be slight to moderate along the rest of the coast with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos receives more cables of greetings on the occasion of his blessed return. Governorates and Vilayahs of the Sultanate continue their celebration, rejoicing His Majesty's safe return. And with global participation, the first World Conference on Operational Preparedness and Transfer to New Airports in the Sultanate starts. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studio, thank you for watching and good night.